It seems that all of the companies that you saw, particularly startups, most obviously, are all very exciting, and they've got this never say never attitude, and they just want to create, and they don't care if it goes wrong. That seems to me to be pretty different to the environment we've got here in the UK, where, with my legal hat on, we are far more fettered, if you like, by law. And Joe, you mentioned advertising regulation. So did you get any sense, I know that's not why you went there, but did you get any sense that people care or are worried about law? I mean, everyone thinks of the US as, being really, really hampered and absolutely paranoid by the law. So I don't know if you've got any flavour of that out there.
I think part of it is a symptom of the people we met. So we were meeting people who were there to sell what they were doing. Quite often they were the owners, they were the product managers, they were the marketers. Twitter was quite an interesting environment in a way, because we were kind of funneled into this anodyne reception area. Yeah, it was like, go into the enclosed space and we will pour the Twitter juice on you for 5 minutes. And certainly they were very on, what they would say, what they wouldn't say. So I don't think it's like the Wild West out there. Certainly it's very litigious. And there was a lot of lawyers with nice suits on at the party who were very much part of that whole setup. So I think we may have given it a slightly shinier gloss as a symptom of who we met.
I mean, they were quite clear where the contract started and stopped, and they were quite clear that you did not want to get into a contract fight with them. And there was seas of people behind them to have a contract fight, but I think they probably have a slightly different threshold of commerciality versus risk versus audience. I think it is a little bit different, but as Joe said, there was quite clearly an army of people waiting to sue the life out of you if you crossed the line. But every single person we spoke to spoke about global usage. It is about owning global usage rights for your content, your brand's content, your creative content, whatever that is, so that you can absolutely maximise the opportunity of the global entity that is the internet.
I mean, one of the things that I think is potentially a little bit of a shame for the UK companies is that Tastemade were fantastic at selling their product, and I think they had a really great story and all the rest of it, and what came across were they were guys that were working not to kind of like just go and sell the business in a year or whatever, but to actually create something really quite cool and make it. They'd almost like made their money on something else, and this is what they were doing just because they felt that there was a real need for it and the passion. And you don't get a lot of those conversations in the UK. When you're on the West Coast, it seems like everyone has got bored of working, getting paid millions from Google and Facebook, and are now doing something else that they're really passionate about. That's a real difference. And actually, in the whole kind of like the whole room, I mean, because I'll meet brands and I think people like Factory Media. I mean, Red Bull, not a US company, but they're Red Bull Media Entertainment. They're producing quality content. But what happens is when they come and present to you, they come and present to you in your offices and they show you some things. They don't show you their factory where they've got their studio and they've got this and they've got that, and it's like so impressive. Suddenly you're like, this is a serious operation here that you can trust. And there's a difference there. And I think that a lot of the UK companies, it's difficult for them to compete against that because they haven't got that kind of space and presence and budget, let's say.
I think the other thing is that, because I'm conscious of the fact that we've sort of homed in on this maker, influencer, blogger sort of community. It's so much bigger than I think even we thought it was. Everyone's heard of PewDiePie, and everyone's heard of the slow-mo guy. There are thousands of them, and every country of the world is producing them as well. So it's definitely a movement that is going to change the way that we will think about video. And that, I think, was the most affecting thing that we saw.
But I also think that it's oversupplied, though, personally, in terms of like, as great as it is, you also get this feeling of, oh my God, there's so many of these content creators. That's why Influential was really interesting, because and that whole kind of thing of we got 22,000 of these people and also Tastemade being a bit like, we'll just drop one and find another, because actually, as impressive as all these people are, there's so many others still doing similar things.
But I think that's it's interesting, because I think that might be the point, in that if we've moved from the old model of content, which was based around scarcity, where there were commissioners, editors, whoever, who would filter before it got to the public, and we're now in a new world which is about abundance, where anything is available, but the cream rises, and that's a big shift, and a big shift for us to get our heads around as well as add people.
But there was a lot of fairly hairy meetings where you kind of went to and you went, well, I'm not sure where we would fit into this. I can't remember who it was that we came out of it and we're like, I don't know. Oh, it was probably Tastemade, wasn't it? Because
Like, we don't need you.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, we really want to work with creative agencies. And you know, we kind of sat there going, yes, you really must, thinking, I don't know why, because
And then we realised they were talking about media agencies as well, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think this, for me, it's kind of going, how do we skill up the people within our businesses to thinking outside of the constraints of the traditional advertising formats, and whether that's traditional digital advertising formats or traditional above-the-line advertising formats. And how do you kind of breed a generation of entrepreneurial, creative producer strategists who are kind of thinking about formats and thinking about how you are spinning things into this world of abundant and infinite content. Because, again, whilst they may not need us, they aren't good at it yet. No. And I think we should be getting in there before they get good at it. And one other point, it was, I can't remember who we were talking to, I think it was Maker Studios, where they said, we make 6 shows a day. And we make 1 ad every 6 months, if you're lucky. That the pace is going to have to change, and that ability to react quickly, and rather than spend 30 grand researching something, get it out there.
Yeah. I mean, more than ever.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to your point, if I was sitting in the audience and I was from a TV production company, I'd be even more scared than if I was in an agency, because the quality, I mean, those Varga boys that go around doing travel videos, when I got one camera, it looked like they'd had Ridley Scott on the shoot. I mean, it was just amazing quality, and they're doing it for nothing. So these big companies that are still charging hundreds of thousands of pounds to make commercials, that's already changing, and it's going to change.
I mean, more than ever, though. I mean, in a week we saw 20 companies. There's a sea of them out there, and some of it's true and some of it's not true, and some of it's good and some of it's bad. And our clients are going to need people that they trust, and they're going to need people that they trust to help them navigate that sea. So the model will change. It will change. Some of the production margins are going to get squeezed. Some of what we get paid for is probably going to change, but in the war between Google and Facebook, in all of these things that we've talked about, our clients are still going to want someone that they can put in a room and sit down and go, is that true?
Well, we're only talking about, I mean, a lot of it is about video, isn't it, really? And I think what we, especially as creative agencies, there's a whole lot of other stuff. So none of these guys are getting, well, apart from the weird robot guy, nobody's getting involved in what's going on in the store or what's going on, through the letterbox or in a face-to-face communications or in internal comms. So I don't think agencies are dead, but I think we need to identify where we can really add value, and also I think we just need to work with them, because I think we're very used to, as agencies, we're still talking about working more with media agencies. I mean, why are we even having that conversation? Of course we should. We should work with media agencies, we should work with makers, we should work with producers.
Well, and I think, building on that, this whole issue of data, we had a few meetings where we would talk about data and understanding it. And, that seemed to me to be quite a clear message as well, that if we don't, as agencies, get on top of all of that, someone's going to come and eat our lunch, because, you gave a good example, I can't remember who gave the example of what Facebook had done with the data. But there, just understanding it and using our creative smarts and our media smarts to make that all come alive is clearly an area where agencies should be strong. And we didn't talk about that as much today because it's a bit complicated, but that was all going on out there as well.
But no, I was just going to say that just on that agency point lastly, I mean, I think it's kind of like Red's point, that I think the worrying thing for agencies is a lot of these companies are so ready to go directly to clients and go, look, this is the great stuff we're doing, and I think that they have all the data, in terms of and is whether they share all of that as well for us to really understand it and go, actually, there's a reason for using this service at this time and not that service and things like that. That's the mystery that we're not really that well informed at the moment on, because it's just like they're doing great stuff, got these loads and loads of numbers, and you're like, okay, but does that number matter? The fact that PewDiePie, or whatever he's called, is churning out, 3 different videos a day and churning out 6 million views, and he's just literally just like churning out videos in his sleep. He's like, if you know what I mean, it's a bit like what's that novel writer that just gets other people just to write all his books and they just keep on coming out. It's like, is the quality of each thing as good as, just one really good thing. And, we need to get to the bottom of that with effectiveness studies and all the rest of it, and that data, which is what's missing. And I think that agencies are best at interpreting that and making sense of it.
Any last questions before we wrap? Okay, well, thanks all very much, and thank you for coming.